On December 7, 1941, the Japanese assaulted U.S. forces at Pearl Harbor. The surprise attack had a stunning effect on young Utah native George Wallen. Trained as a mechanic, Wallen enlisted in the Navy, eager to service aircraft bound for Pacific combat.
I went into the Navy and finally finished boot camp. I think, as I recall, it was 8 weeks. And I found out I was assigned to go to Hospital Corps School. Of course, I want to become an aircraft mechanic. That's what I've been trained for. Lieutenant Commander said, well, he says, we need to get men in the Hospital Corps.
The urgent need for medical personnel steered Wallen toward one of the war's bloodiest battlegrounds, the heavily fortified island of Iwo Jima. There, assigned as a corpsman to an invading Marine battalion, the 21-year-old pharmacist mate experienced the devastation of combat for the first time.
The day we was making the landing on the beach, one of the things I remember there, one of the platoon runners called over and said, Lieutenant, I lost my rifle coming out of the boat. And the lieutenant said, well, there's plenty of casualties, plenty of dead out here, go find one. I had not really been raised with any religion or anything, but I'd been to church with some of the Marines once in a while. I thought, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do this, you know. I could imagine me being a corpsman, and when they had casualties, my job was to go out and take care of them. I think it was the first time I've ever prayed in my life. I figured if every time I need help, this is when it is. Come across a Marine, and he'd been hit in the stomach with machine gun fire. Stopped to see if I could help him, and I pulled his jacket off, and those intestines just flopped out, which is almost an unimaginable thing to see, but I had a big battle dressing, and I wet it all down and put some sulfur powder and stuff on it.
Within a day of his arrival, Wallen had administered aid to 14 Marines from an adjoining platoon, in addition to the significant wounded from his own group. But it was only the first of nearly 13 days of unremitting enemy attack.
The next day or two, we was advancing up a hill. A Japanese machine gun opened up on the group. So everybody hit the ground and just kind of laying there trying to see where it was coming from. And finally we got word to pull off the hill. But there was 2 casualties over on my right flank. So my job was to go take care of them. So I crawled out there under this raging fire, and I got out there, both of them had been killed outright. So I started to crawl away, and a grenade hit right to the side of me. Most of the blast went over, but part of it caught me in the face. And the shock from that kind of temporarily knocked me unconscious. Kind of got my bearings back, and some Marine over on the other flank was hauling for a corpsman. So I tried to crawl over to him, and grenades were landing around him, so I couldn't get there. And I could see where they're coming from, and I didn't have any grenades being a corpsman, so I hollered for one of the Marines down the hill to throw me a grenade to see if I knock out that emplacement. Big concern was that one of those buddies of mine and I became very close to the Marines, and to think one of those guys died because I didn't go out and take care of him, that was more of a worry. Didn't get killed or get wounded or whatever. So the last day I was on the island, which was the 13th, we'd been dug in, and I'd heard where some Marines had supposed to have been casualties. I went by a big shell hole, and there were 5 Marines in this big shell hole, you know, and as I walked through, their big mortar hit in that hole. And I was maybe 10 feet or so from the hole, and I went to stand up to get to them, and fell down. I couldn't walk. And I looked down, and my boot had been torn off. I'd been hit in the leg. So I sat down and bandaged my leg up, gave myself a shot of morphine, and then crawled over to start taking care of these Marines.
Despite his own serious injuries, Wallen nonetheless remained on the battlefield to treat the wounded, working 50 yards deeper into enemy territory before finally being evacuated to safety.
I was in the Navy hospital recuperating from my leg, and I got word that I was being sent back to Washington. I was going to get the Medal of Honor. Being a young enlisted man and seeing all those officers, generals and admirals and everybody all there, and the President of the United States, I thought, oh my criminy, what am I going to do? And I was the first Navy corpsman to receive the medal, I guess during World War II, living at least. And I wasn't the first one called up there, but finally when I reported to President Truman, give me a big smile and said, sure glad to see a pill pusher finally made it up here. I don't know what distinguished me any different than any of the rest. As far as I can think back, they did all that was expected of them, and I just tried to do what was expected of me.